Go ahead.
Okay, let's go here. We'll start with Callan. He goes, afternoon, gents. At the rate we're going, we can just merge the Mountain West, the Big West, the West Coast, and the Pac-12 into one giant conference. Realignment, in my opinion, is causing more harm than good.
Oh, it's chaotic. It's unbelievable. I mean, John David Wicker's comment to me that we were at death's doorstep with the dissolve of the Pac-12, with the troubles with the transfer portal and all that. And he said, we were just not going to grieve. We were going to just go to work and try to solve things day to day to day. And all of a sudden now they're a member of, quote, the Pac-12, but it's not the same Pac-12. I do like John Riley's idea. You know, once every year and a half, he comes up with something on this podcast that's really novel. Hey, if I'm the Pac-12, I'm calling Gonzaga and I'm calling St. Mary's and I'm calling USF and say, would you like to come join us as a basketball-only member? That'd be kind of cool because that I still think nationwide the Pac-12 logo and brand carries clout. Now, the people on the Eastern Seaboard may not be paying attention, the fact that 10 of them left to go other places. But you mentioned Pac-12 and they think Conference of Champions and all the great athletes. Your idea, that's pretty cool. The rest of it, I don't know where they're going to go at the rest of these schools. And, you know, I've been told that Cal and Stanford may be thinking we made a mistake, so that would get them to 8. But I still think you need more names. But where those names are going to come from, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. This is, I think, a great time for San Diego State. And to your point, death's doorstep. I knew it was bad when you would hear the Aztec Mesa Foundation we were crying that they were poor. They didn't have enough money for the NIL for not just the men's basketball program, but for all of the sports. And you're thinking, we can't raise enough money here in San Diego. They needed to do something to flip it. And I think this is going to put them on a good trajectory. I'm really positive here.
But the only arguing point to that is if they've scuffled so much with the putting money into that pot for NIL for not just basketball, which deserves it, but football, you got to pay it to keep your players.
Yeah.
And you got baseball trying to get back up on its feet. They're going to need even more money going to the Pac-12.
But donors are more likely to donate, I think, if it's, like you say, the Pac-12 brand. They're not going to want to donate to a football program that goes place Wyoming.
Okay. Callum, it's interesting to see where this goes. I guess he's saying maybe this is a thumbs up. You think this is a good day at San Diego State historically. Next one.
Okay, let's go here to Chris. Hey, Saw, what the hell happened to DeShaun Watson? Just years ago, he was assaulting the record books, was a potential MVP. Now he looks like a rookie who doesn't want to be out there. Sure, his off-field stuff has rubbed people the wrong way, but now it looks like there's no chance for a happy ending.
Well, he suffered a really serious shoulder injury. He suffered a torn labrum. I mean, he got plastered. And he just does not look like the same quarterback right now. And his delivery looks different. His ability to make decisions and get the ball in the right spot looks really different. And, you know, they got all kinds of injury problems. They don't have their bookend tackles. Both their tackles are really good players, and they can't keep them on the field, Jed Willis and Jack Conklin. And they're trying to live off Myles Garrett in a really great defense, but he looks like a shell of the player that he was before. And to me, it's almost like there's a fear factor. I've watched some of the video. It's like he's afraid to run. If he runs, he's going to get blasted. If he gets blasted, he's going to re-injure the shoulder. I don't think he's in a good place from a football perspective. And I'll tell you what, I know he's not in a good place right now with this next lawsuit. But the NFL just announced, just as we were coming on the air, that they are going to hold a hearing, and this woman and the lawyer, Tony Bisbee, who represented all the other women in the sexual misconduct cases and won them all, I don't think they can penalize him a second time because they've already been penalized and suspended for 11 games and fined $5 million.
Well, I just remember when he went to the Browns, we were all wondering, like, what the hell's going on here? Because it was such a big contract, had that guaranteed money. I mean, can you refresh my memory on the chronology here? Because wasn't he a quarterback in the ACC?
He's at Clemson.
At Clemson. Then he went to Houston. And
became a star.
And he was a star there, but didn't he get hurt or something for a while before he went to Cleveland? I'm trying to remember.
No, his contract was coming up. And then right in the middle of all this came the sexual misconduct things that spread out over a year and a half with 24 masseuse trainers.
Wow.
And sex and all that stuff. And then they sued him. And then they got together collectively under one lawyer, massive lawsuit. And then he settled virtually all of them, wrote checks.
Wow.
Make it go away. Now this one surfaced out of nowhere. Then he goes to Cleveland and he gets really badly hurt. I mean, he tore his labrum
That's when he got
really
hurt.
bad. Yes.
That's when he got hurt.
And he only played half of his first season because of the 11-game suspension. Comes back the second year and gets hurt. He misses the whole second half of that season. And he didn't look like the same quarterback now.
But when Cleveland traded for him, it was already all the news about the misconduct was in the public, right?
Yes. Oh, yes.
So it makes you wonder why in the hell they made that big deal to get him in the first place.
And it makes you wonder why the hell the owner would give him $230 million guaranteed that nobody had ever gotten before.
Exactly.
And why you give away 3 number 1 draft picks and 6 picks in all.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense to me. And I think, if you're trying to build an NFL franchise in your town, you want players with good character. Unless you're the Oakland Raiders.
That's where we are with DeShaun Watson. We'll see what happens this Sunday. Boy, they don't want to be 0-2 to start the season. Next question.
Okay, let's go here to Danny, and he kind of poked me on my shoulder, remind me of what I was forgetting before. UNLV and Utah State seem like the next 2 teams to join the 6-pack, but do you think that the 6-pack will also ask Cal and Stanford to come back, or even ask the Arizona schools?
I don't think the Arizona schools are coming back. I think that they feel comfortable. They used to be in the old WAC, which had ties to the Midlands. So I think Arizona State, Arizona gone forever, with Colorado and with Utah. I think Cal and Stanford are the ones that they're probably looking at on the East Coast and say, this is stupid what you guys did. And by the way, you did it and you're taking a discount and you're not getting the equal rights fees, etc. I think Golden Bears Cardinal might be the first 2. I've been told that Vegas has all types of issues, including leadership, the president's office. It's in Vegas. It's glitzy. It's a destination point for big events. They don't give a crap about UNLV Rebels football. And Jerry Tarkanian was decades and decades ago, and they don't support basketball either. Utah State, not much of a difference between them and Nevada and Wyoming. They're all kind of cut from the same cloth and very, very small markets, very small NIL pool. So New Mexico, they're all going to have to live their life, and that'll be that conference. It's not going to be the same conference emotionally because there is no flag carrier, no Boise State, no San Diego State, and to a degree, no Fresno. And those are the ones that really brought national attention to the Mountain West.
Yeah, this is a fascinating development because we're struggling to find other schools that we could fit in the profile. Like 2/3 of America lives east of the Mississippi River. And so of the remaining,
and the other 3/4 live in the state of Texas.
Exactly. So there's not much left. And then you start thinking about other schools on the West Coast, and so many of them don't even have football programs. So it's hard to even come up with other universities to fill in the gaps. Yes. I think in the end, it's not going to be a Pacific conference. It's going to be a Pacific, Midlands, Rocky Mountain, the western half of the United States conference.
We'll do some research and see what else is out there. And I don't think there's anything out there. And I don't think they want to get into a geographic thing that, West Virginia's in the Big 12. You know how far Morgantown, West Virginia is from the rest of the schools in Big 12? Where are we going to go? Who are you going to take from the Eastern Seaboard and make them part of the Pac-12? You can't do that.
No, well, you can't call it the Pac-12.
Exactly.
Even if you were able to get 12 teams.
On we go
here. Let's go to the power, and says 76-35. That says it all.
Well, it does. Well, he's talking about Deion Sanders.
No, he's talking about Tyreek Hill.
I'm sorry, Tyreek Hill. That's what I meant. He's talking about Tyreek Hill. That's item 1. Roll your window down. No response. That's item 2. On the cell phone, they're arresting me. He hadn't even gotten out of the car yet. And then item 3, haul him out, get him on the ground, handcuff him, beat me like a dog. Well, I didn't see anybody punch him, although I thought the force should not have occurred. So that's where we are. It all starts with him, and he's never let up. He did his post-game press conference Sunday, then he talked about it Monday, then he talked about it again yesterday. And every time he talks about it, he throws another match onto this fire, kind of reigniting the gasoline. It's all tinted with racial incidents. He's wrong. The police were wrong. But you have to understand what the police face on a daily basis every time there's a traffic stop. Because guys roll windows down and shoot cops because they're bad guys in the car. So now cops are dealing with this, and you got somebody who won't cooperate. What are you doing?
Well, that does happen where a motorist will pull out a gun on a cop, but that's got to be really rare. That's like a suicide move right there. If you're going to pull a gun on a cop at a traffic stops. So sometimes I wonder if the police sort of overblow that, to justify this behavior, because it's almost like a paranoia that they have and you've seen other cases. I mean, we can go back to George Floyd and a lot of other things where people have literally been snuffed out by the police.
Exactly.
So there's a legitimate reason for people to be concerned about the police brutality. I just think as a nation, we just need to evolve better on this. I think our police need to be more well-trained. I think we need to see, police that are in as good a shape as some of these NFL players so they can handle people without using deadly force. So there's a lot that can be improved on here. But in the end, you're right. Tyreek Hill caused the problem. You don't drive 76 around a stadium with all the fans around there. And then, the cops took it too far.
Okay, next question.
Okay, let's go here to Greg. He says, Lee, what do you see as the next possible Major League sports franchise to come to San Diego? Hockey, football, American League T? What's he saying?
Football, there's no stadium. Until we get a stadium built, I don't think the NFL is going to look at this marketplace. And who's going to pay for the stadium and then pay for a franchise? At this point, there seems to be no idea for expansion in the U.S. I just think, unfortunately, we've lost our NFL team because of the greed of the owner. I don't think we're going to get one back. Stan Kroenke, they continue to work behind the scenes. They've not turned the first shovel of dirt for a new look sports arena. But his ideology was, I'd sure like to see the NHL here. Now, I don't know whether they'd relocate a franchise here once you got the new arena built, but that's not going to happen 2 weeks from Tuesday. That's way down road. But we know this, Kroenke is a doer. You look at all the things he's accomplished in the course of his career, he's a pretty impressive guy. So hockey might be. Basketball, NBA, nah, I don't see that happening. I hate to say it. We do have a great baseball franchise that has kind of put its arms around the community. I just don't know that we're going to find another franchise to move here in another sport. San Diego is kind of positioned now in a very tight fit in Southern California. You got the ocean, you got Mexico, and you got everything, Dodger Stadium and all that to the north. I just don't know that we're going to be able to get another franchise here in any of those sports. Soccer, yes, we've already got that coming. But in terms of big three, I don't think so.
Well, I mean, they can't even fill up Snapdragon Stadium for an Aztecs game.
Mm-hmm.
So San Diego has so many fans or so many people that are from somewhere else, right? So if we had an NBA franchise, like when we had the Clippers, they didn't draw all that well. And, and at the same time, the people that show up are usually fans of the other team.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, if I were to say stack rank it, I think the NFL is never coming back. The NHL, I think, is a maybe. I think there's maybe an outside shot of the NBA coming, but in the end, I think San Diego needs to think differently on this. And I like the MLS team coming to town, and I love San Diego State being a bigger deal in this community.
Do you want me to throw the half glass of water at you now or later? I thought about this driving in from the press conference. Pac-12, Aztecs. Yeah, the Aztecs who had 18,000 per game for their first two. That included 5,000 free tickets for students in the student section.
Mm-hmm.
So in essence, they had 12,000 paid customers.
Yeah, but their prices are still too high.
Well, I concur, but so we're big time. We're in a Pac-12, and you're getting 12,000 walking in the door. My alma mater drew 19,000 for Mid-American Conference opener last week at Ohio U.
Mm-hmm.
19,000, and they weren't freebies.
Yeah, but you guys don't have much else going on in that part of the world, right?
Sure.
I mean, here people are going to the beach, they're having a great time, enjoying all of San Diego. I just wonder, do you think the Pac-12 will re-emerge as a Power 5 conference? Because if it's not, then it's, to your point, it's just Mountain West 2.0.
Yeah. Somebody has to sales pitch me and convince me, and I don't want somebody accusing me walking around with the glass half full. They think there is great potential with TV partners and all that. But if this is all we're going to have, the Cougars and the Beavers and the 4 refugees that they stole from the Mountain West, and then whoever else we add is 7 and 8.
Well, if they made it a Power 5 conference, I'm certain the attendance would go up, and you probably have a lot better teams coming through here too.
You'll have to argue with me about that to convince me. Okay, let's move on. Next question.
All right, let's go here to Manny. He goes, Hey, I don't feel bad for the Cleveland Browns. Those idiots hired Paul DePodesta, and look how bad he ruined the Dodgers.
Yeah, he's a great X and O's and a creative genius and analytics and all that. But has there been any success in Cleveland? No. So here they are. I got one of my really good friends lives there, and he worked in media, and he's got season tickets, and says those people are just really peeved at the Haslams and just the whole thing of what Cleveland Browns is. It's just been so long since they've been really, really good. And Bernie Kosar was a long time ago. And at the end of the day, they all got screwed by John Elway on the drive or the fumble or whatever it was. So it's really tough in Cleveland right now.
I mean, you would have to go back to the 80s, right? When the Browns were like a serious team, right?
I think their last championship was 1964.
Yeah, something like that. But they were a perennial playoff team in the 80s.
The Cardiac Kids. Well, Brian Sipe.
Brian Sipe.
From here.
Yeah.
San Diego State Aztec. But
and then Kosar.
Yeah, they were there for a chunk of time, and they were really good, and it just hadn't been the same. And then the franchise moved. Then went to Baltimore.
Oh, yeah.
And they put the expansion team in, and just it's been a long haul with a lot of different quarterbacks. And now they got this guy at quarterback, social misfit.
When you think of the Cleveland Browns, you think of like one of the old school NFL teams.
Jim Brown, Lou Groza.
Yeah, like that kind of vibe, you know. And it was weird when they moved out, and they moved out in the middle of the night, like you were saying before.
Exactly. Next question, fans forum.
Okay, let's go to Roy, and he says, that's what happens when pro athletes feel entitled. The law does not apply to them. Cooperate and move on. Address any problems with your lawyer. Quit resisting.
Yeah, and quit antagonizing the storyline that you created. He's talking about Tyreek Hill. We'll see where it goes, see if it calms down. The NFL's not going to discipline him. These are 2 minor citations, but he's made it such a big thing by invoking the race card. Next topic. All
right, let's go to some of our social media friends. We'll get them involved too. And okay, let's talk a little here about Johnny Hockey. This is from Phyllis. He says, just checking in from Manitoba. I'm an NHL fan, but Johnny was an amazing guy to watch on the ice, and his genuineness always stood out to me. No matter where he was, he always gave 110% to whatever he was doing. It was known for his smile. The NHL world has lost one of the best, and hopefully we can all carry his legacy forward by being good to the people around us.
Yeah, I got to watch some of the video of the actual funeral service. One of my friends in Canada sent it to me. It was amazing. They had the caskets of the 2 brothers, Johnny and Matthew, side by side, and they were draped. Calgary Flames jersey, Columbus Blue Jackets jersey, their Boston College jerseys. It was just an emotional thing. Gary Bettman, the president of the NHL, came to the funeral. Brian Burke, legendary general manager, former player agent, he was at the funeral. They had players, I think, from 8 different hockey clubs who flew in from all different places to celebrate his life. And I think we talked briefly about it last week. Somebody came up with the idea, let's start a GoFundMe campaign, because they left behind a widow and 6 little kids between them. And the one wife just announced she's pregnant too. They raised $660,000, I think, in the first 12 hours. Now, I don't know how much higher it's gone then, but I mean, the NHL players and management people, college people, just poured money into this GoFundMe on their behalf. So, and the thing that made Johnny Hockey cool, every time you saw him on video, he was smiling because he was also scoring goals. So it's going to be interesting. And one of his former teammates, who's in Montreal now, is going to wear his uniform jersey number 13 in his honor with the Montreal Canadiens. So,
very cool.
Yeah, really cool. So really sad time.
Imagine if you're Johnny Hockey's sister, the one that got married.
Yeah.
You know, and this is always going to be hanging over their marriage for the rest of their lives. It's kind of weird.
Well, it's a tragic death in the way it happened, the time of its career happened. And then you staple onto that. It happened hours before they were supposed to take part in her wedding ceremony, and they canceled the ceremony. They're moving it to a down later in the calendar.
Good.
But, just a tragic time. Next question.
Okay, here we'll talk to some Raiders. This is in questioning about the whole Gardner Minshew bit, and he goes, "Man, you hate us. Everything you said, it's true, but you say it so proudly." Shaking my head.
I know what I know, and I'm telling you what I know. You don't have to buy what I know. But at the end of the day, scoreboard, baby, the scoreboard does not lie. You are what your record says you are, according to Bill Parcells.
Right.
So they have to solve the quarterback issue. You know, I talk glowingly about the arrival of Christian Wilkins, huge difference maker with Mad Max. And what happens? The two defensive ends on the other side both went down with knee injuries, both on IR. That's a big issue. You know, and I talked about, is Minshew the right guy? And have you replaced your running back, Josh Jacobs, whom you let go? I praised the two tight ends, Devontae Adams and Jacoby Myers. They got pieces, but geez, you got to have a quarterback. And they had drafted Derek Carr out of Fresno State, and he gave him 8 or 9 years. I thought it was really competitive, but they didn't win a ton. But that was an organizational deficiency, not so much on Derek Carr. He's down in New Orleans, where he'll probably finish out his career. They just have to find a way to get a marquee quarterback. And I am not going to pile on Cisco, but the scoreboard does not lie. It's not that I hate you. You got 2 bleeping winning seasons in 21 years. What world are you living in, sales pitching me and John and all these people on our podcast, The Greatness of the Raiders? Where? When? 2 winning seasons in 21 years, have not won a playoff game since 2002, baby. Okay. End of my statement and preach. I turn you over to my assistant.
My assistant. Well, I first of all, I love following all the reaction in social media because they're like, oh, you're a Raider hater or you're a Dodger lover. Or everyone's trying to figure out who you're rooting for.
My wife included.
Yeah. And they know, obviously, your history with the Chargers and San Diego, and they always think different things. But in response to that, I do want to circle back. There was another live stream comment that Roy brought up that's relevant here. And he says, Hacksaw, I've watched you for many years and probably we're the same age. What I greatly appreciated about your radio show was your unbiased take. You were not a homer and called it the way it is. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You just try to play it down the line.
Yeah.
And I understand that sometimes I will offend somebody on this side, and sometimes I'll upset somebody over here. But at the end of the day, if you're keeping score, I'm just telling you what is. You're a Raider hater. Well, dude, I'm not the one that said 2 winning seasons in 21 years and has, drafted all these criminal element guys that are out of the NFL. I'm just reporting what is and expressing an opinion. So that's where I am.
Telling it like it is.
Howard Cosell.
Yeah, but here, let's do a follow-up on that one. Here, where is it? This is a Padre comment from 1950 Chevy Deluxe. He says, you called it a house of cards just a few weeks ago, and now you're praising the very general manager you wanted fired.
1950 Chevy Belvedere. Yeah, that was pretty cool with the great shift on
3 on the tree.
Yeah, 3 on the tree. End of the day, that's back when they were underachieving. That was kind of at midseason. What are you talking about, Chevy? You were the one walking around pissed off after they lost that series to Colorado and then lost to Miami. Do you remember that? Now they're playing really well. They've come together. And the end of the day, it was like a house of cards back then because they weren't winning. It was just a repeat the first half of this season to the repeat of last year's season of underachievement. And I'm just dealing with what the scoreboard tells me they are. Now, the general manager, he went out and got some players at the trade deadline. Best bullpen in baseball right now. And the acquisitions, the in-season acquisitions of getting Peralta and getting Solano, it's kind of changed everything. So he's done a good job, and now those guys are all contributing. So am I cheering now? Yeah, I'm cheering the job and what the franchise has become. But back at the point where I called it a house of cards, dude, they had lost 3 straight to freaking Colorado, last place Colorado, 100 lost Colorado, and you want me to cheerlead for that? No, I'm not going to do that.
And there was also on the heels of the 2023 disappointment that we had, but it's just funny. I mean, the Padres situation, they have been Jekyll and Hyde throughout the whole year. But, you have been praising them and dissing them, but maybe that is the Howard Cosell bit, right?
What have you done for me lately? I'm just commenting on what I see.
What you see.
I'm sitting here right now. I'm really concerned that Michael King and Dylan Cease are gassed. And I just don't know what kind of long-term innings we're getting out of Darvish. Musgrove looks like Musgrove is back. But boy, going to postseason, they look a little wafer thin right now.
Well, Musgrove's last outing wasn't very good.
I mean, he gave up all those home runs early.
Right.
But he's had a lot more good innings than he's had an odd bad inning.
But you always said, I want accountability, right? When it came to the front office and AJ Preller.
And he got it. This is what he's done roster-wise for the second half of the season. He's probably saved his job.
He probably has not only saved the job, but now you want to make him NL Executive of the Year.
Yeah, him and Schild. Why not? If they finish it with a top wild card spot and then do something postseason, yeah, those guys deserve it.
Yeah, did you watch the game last night? Was kind of weird, wasn't it? I mean, it was so frustrating that, that Wu kid was throwing a great ball game. Then Tatis hit the laser missile to break up the perfect game. But it was disappointing to split in Seattle. Now they're going to San Francisco. They got to take at least 2 out of 3.
That's a nameless, faceless roster in San Francisco right now. Now, maybe they'll face Blake Snell, but that's a Blake Snell that got pulled in the first inning after throwing 42 pitchers all over the place. So Snell he's Jekyll and Hyde too.
Well, the Giants have Lamont Wade Jr., talking about faceless names. Okay, let's go here. Talk a little more Raider football. I got a couple of Raider comments. This one here is from Joey Aggs, and he says, Smacksaw, another great take. I think the biggest problem with the Raiders organization is that they have had 13 different head coaches since 2001. How can anyone in any organization or business create any kind of success or winning culture if the coach is only there for a year or two? Culture kills vision.
Well, they keep making mistakes on coaches, and then they overpay some of these coaches, and then they fire them and have to eat the contracts of some of these coaches. And that's not a wealthy franchise. A lot of people don't know. Mark Davis doesn't have a lot of money. I think it's a poorly run franchise. I know there's a lot of glitter. There's a hell of a lot of smoke around them. Some of those people who induce that smoke by what they're doing. But at the end of the day, it's just not a well-run franchise. That's why the NFL did not want the Raiders in Los Angeles. They did not want them to sully up this number 2 market with the way they operated their franchise and the entourage and the people that make it something. I've seen so many videos, John, of the Raider-Charger game and the brawls at SoFi. I mean, they were just horrible. It's like these people showed up drunk looking to pick a fight. Was there a game going on? No problem. Who's the guy I'm going to hit? I saw so many. I bet I saw 10 different videos of really ugly, almost like gang brawls in the seats.
I remember seeing those at Qualcomm Stadium, and they, granted, there are always drunk people doing stupid things, beating each other up at any game, but you had a little more action at a Raider Charger game for sure. And there was just like a beatdown in Petco Park. I think a couple of weeks ago. Was it when the Giants were here? I can't remember, but this particular deal with the Raiders, when they brought John Gruden back, was it 10 million or 10 years, 100 million? Mm-hmm. Did you like that move at that time?
He was a hot commodity. He had done some good things in Tampa, though I said he did it with Tony Dungy's players. So he came back, and his drafts were miserable. He had 9 top picks over a 3-year run, and all of them washed out. Injuries, bunch of arrests, bunch of guys who couldn't freaking play. And all of a sudden, it came to my mind was, this guy's a TV character. Because he's glib and he's good on TV does not mean he's going to be a great head coach. And then the more I dug into it, then the more I realized that, he did well in Tampa with Tony Dungy's players. And he didn't do anything after that. And he didn't do anything with the Raiders. And then he got involved himself with all this garbage with his emails, got himself fired, and he's suing everybody. And what really bothered me, because at one point I really liked John Gruden as a personality. I mean, I did conference calls with him, and he was glib, and he answered questions, and it was fun. And obviously, I enjoyed his work on TV. But then when we found out the depths of all these emails, this racial stuff, and I thought to myself, you wrote that? That's in your heart. That's in your heart. I'm not going to respect it anymore. I don't. And that's why he's never found another job.
Yeah, that was crazy. I mean, that whole thing, when that went down, I think a lot of us were just shocked.
Mm-hmm.
It was just so, beyond being racist and ugly, it was just dumb, to put that in an email. But, you go back to, you said Mark Davis doesn't have a whole lot of money. I mean, how in the hell was Al Davis an owner in an NFL franchise? I mean, he was a coach. How did he get enough money to buy a team?
He just had lawyers and people around him that raised money so he could go in. And again, the price of franchises back then, when he, quote, bought the Oakland Raiders, who were just a disaster in the early days of the AFL, the prices were minuscule. So he put the money together, and he was a great coach. He knew great coaches, and he had a plan, and his ability to acquire players and people from all walks of life, some good, some really bad, and get them to play. He was bringing guys out of prison. They were successful, but then the game evolved. Then it became not just football and X's and O's. Then it became dollars. Then it became a business. And they were so far behind the power curve in Oakland and even in LA from the business perspective, they couldn't keep up. And you go back, if you just Google Oakland Raiders, LA Raiders, Las Vegas Raiders, year by year record, you will be shocked at how many bad seasons they've had in the last 20 years.
That's what you said. Only 2 winning seasons
In
21 years. That's mind blowing.
Since the Super Bowl.
I mean, I can't think of any team in any sport that's been that bad. Can you?
Well, you never follow the Chicago Cardinals and the Bidwells and the St. Louis Cardinals and the Bidwells, and kind of like the Arizona Cardinals and the Bidwells.
Yeah.
And, aside from the greatness of Paul Brown, his son Mike Brown hasn't done a hell of a lot over a long haul. Now, he has recently in Cincinnati with the quarterback Joe Burrow, but there's a long track record there of incompetence too. So, yeah, there's some really bad run franchises.
Well, we've had a long run here in San Diego of difficult owners and losing records. I'm hoping that we've, turned the corner on that.
You're a Charger fan, right?
Sorta.
Okay.
I'm still kind of a bitter ex, boyfriend that got broken up with.
Well, I was on a talk show in Toronto the other night, and they asked me my thoughts on Justin Herbert and Jim Harbaugh. And I said, that's going to be fun to watch. And I think that coach will have great impact on the culture and that quarterback, et cetera. But at the end of the day, they thought this was great. The end of the day, because, you're talking to the ex-voice of the Chargers who was left behind when the franchise moved and they screwed 55 years of loyalty. I told the guys in Toronto, I hope Justin Herbert goes 17-0, and I hope Gene Spanos, the owner, goes 0-17. They laughed and they roared. So that's where
it's a great line, but it makes no sense.
There's counseling and medication for that.
I get it.
Hey, listen, we hope you have